captain. Right next to him, a member of the fourth generation of the family, Scott Binkley, who is the son of Captain Jim Binkley Jr., who was trained by his father and now is in the process of training his son to be a river pilot. It's interesting, the genetics of this whole thing, handed down from Charlie through Jim and Mary, who came in here into the interior to go to college, and they actually met up at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. 53 years they've been married. Very proud of that. And they together had 4 children, 3 boys and a girl. And the third generation now operates this business. Captain Jim and Mary are pretty much retired. They did the thing from the very beginning in 1950. With the little boat that you see out front of us, it's going to be a little hard to see. Maybe we can swing the camera down. There we go. That's Discovery 1. Now she's tied here next to the Shearpool because tonight we're going to have a stern wheeler race on the Tanana River. We're going to celebrate this 50th anniversary. All 3 of our stern wheelers will be in the river at the same time. And that's probably the most boats that have been in the Tanana in 80 years at any one time. And so it's going to be a lot of fun. And even though this is a family affair, each boat will be captained by a Binkley. Don't think that it's not going to be competitive. And I put my money on that little boat right there, built in 1955 at Castaway. Now watch the little body come up nice and level. Now watch that wheel right under the tail. When he drops that down, yeah, right about there, there he goes. 200
wow.
feet of pretty slick. Now, we'll keep him on the TV monitor as fast or as long as we can, so that he can, you can see his progress. What he's going to do is turn around and come around behind us here, I think. Land behind us. While he's getting into position for his slip turn, I'll tell you a little story about him. One January, 45 below zero, his phone rang. It was our hospital. They said, Bill, could you fly up to the Yukon about an hour and a half north? And there's a young woman in labor in one of the villages, and we want her back here in the hospital. We got a call on the radio. He said, sure. Hour and a half, landed in the village, 2 people got in the airplane, 2 out. All he's got to do is miss the plastic chairs and the pickup truck and the float plane and a few other things, snow machines down there. But he's used to this. Look at this, just barely flying. Oh boy. Oh, that was mighty fine. See a little bounce on the wheels, but not much. And he'll fling the door open and wave right to you there with reckless abandon. Bill Johnson, our bush pilot. Thank you, Bill. Bill has a day job. In the winter, he fixes boilers. Our most popular heating plant is oil-fired hot water baseboard. He keeps our boilers tuned up, but this time of year is not too busy. We didn't have to twist his arm too hard to come out here and show off, demonstrate his piloting skills. Now the river, of course, and right next door, this one's Jack Mcmanus' house. He's got a mile of log in there. Shaw Creek stone decorates it. And I love this sign on the lawn. We'll see if we can zoom in on this. Little letters, American by birth. Look at the big letters, Alaskan by choice. Choice has a lot to dump in the hillside. Trucked them down here, waited about 8 months, and then hand peeled every one of those logs with an old-fashioned draw knife. Did it all by hand. And then custom fit the logs together. There's no chinking or anything in there. I mean, he really worked hard on it. And then they'll shrink down for a year before they cut the windows and doors in and moved in. And that again is native white spruce. Now those are triple pane, and they hold the heat in there just fine, strong as a log wall would be, but they don't close that family up. You're going to tour some cabins, little line cabins and trappers' cabins at the village. You'll realize they had one pane of glass or oilskin paper, so they couldn't let the heat out, and they were all closed up. Now every summer, snow machines in the winter, dog teams. Just a little boring on a January night, you can run out your back door and jump in the hot tub. See this little one over here? They took the chimney off of it. That one's wood fired. They build a fire under the tank, cook the water up to 102, come streaking out of there at 35 below, jump in there, watch the northern lights dance overhead. How about that? Okay, I know a tough crowd when how about this for a thrill? How about jumping out of that thing soaking wet and running back in the house on a night like that? You really got to get your resolve up to do that. Get out of that warm water. Now, I made a wheel that was built in 1917, over 80 years ago, and it served the wood-burning boats, the Yukon, named for the river. She was crushed to splinters in the spring breakup of 1946, so Scott's grandfather, Captain Jim Sr., salvaged that wheel and some other parts of that boat rather than turn it over to the museum, we've got it still work in the river. But Scott is, I got to tell you a little secret, he's proud he doesn't have to stand on this box anymore. Ben, can we slip down there? See, he's off the training box. That's a big step. But when he was a lot smaller, just like his cousins, they all stood on that box just as their father and mother had done to learn the trade. Now, our diesel and hydraulics are all controlled from the wheelhouse. We don't have anybody down in the engine room anymore, like the old boats had to have. And so all the gauges and knobs and things and levers will tell Captain Ken what's going on. He's got his own TV monitor. He can see the paddle wheel, and he can go from the bow and look at other places when he's got a tricky landing, the wind's blowing, you want to be able to see. Here, who's going to tell us how these dogs are brought up. Stacy, good morning. I know you're happy with this weather.
Oh, this is a wonderful day for us. Sorry it's raining for you guys. We've been up bright and early this morning training dogs.
Now, how does that start, training these dogs?
Well, it starts right at the very beginning, the bonding process. It's a trusted relationship that Susan and David started with these puppies right from birth. We're there with Mom as she's giving birth to the pups to make sure everything's going good and smooth for her and for the puppies. And after she's given birth and cleaned up the puppies and started her bonding process, we start our bonding process. We pick each one of the pups up gently, blow across their nose, because for the first 10 days their eyes are closed and they get to know who we are through that wonderful sense of smell that these animals have. Mom's been with us all her life, and so she allows us to, and has learned over the years to trust us quite well. So she allows us to be with her right there with the birthing process and to take care of her babies for her too.
Well, what is it that Susan calls that relationship?
A trusted relationship.
Yeah, that really does last all their lives, and they look like they're having fun playing King of the Hill over here. Is this actually part of the training? Are you watching them?
It sure is. This is part of their training. These guys have been trained since 6 weeks of age. Peanut, the little black one back here, is almost 10 weeks old, and the other pups are going on about 13 weeks. So they've been training since 6 weeks of age, and we start on daily walks. We walk through the woods on the trails we have cut with all kinds of obstacles that they'll find there. We go with Mom and some of the retired dogs, and along the trails there's going to be some logs like these, streams and hills. They're challenging for little puppies. So we go with them to encourage them up and over these obstacles, get them to trust us and know we're always going to be there if the going gets rough.
Well, now, as the training progresses, at what age can they actually all be hooked together on a sled?
Well, very soon they start to outrun us, so their exercise process has to go up a notch. These guys over here are 8 months old, so they've been in harness now for about 2 months. At 6 months of age, Susan will put these guys behind a couple of our good, steady leaders, and they just take off looking like they've been doing it all their life, like a miniature team, and so instinctive for these guys to go. And Susan has a wonderful saying that it takes 2 minutes to teach them to go and 2 years to teach them to whoa.
Well, now, what does Susan Butcher like to work for? She must be quite a boss.
She's also worked for a number of years at Cornell University to make sure she's providing the proper nutrition for these dogs.
Now, how many do you have here currently at the kennel?
Well, right now, with the puppies, we have right about 100 dogs, which means we're pretty busy all day long. It's 7 days a week. There's no in between, no weekends off or anything around here. So with 100 dogs, it'll take us about 60 to 80,000 pounds of dry commercial food a year to feed these guys. But we also supplement that with salmon, fish, salmon, beef, chicken, and liver.
Of course, with the great care and nutrition, the exercise is very important to build a winning team, and obviously we can figure out how you do it in the winter. But what about today with no snow? How do you stay in shape?
Well, today is beautiful for us. So we've been out since early this morning on four-wheel carts training a number of teams. We'll continue to do that throughout the day as long as it stays nice and cool like this for us. On warmer days, though, it can get challenging. Susan's had to come up with some different ideas.
Under his front lawn.
And I thought I just
He can still mow the lawn, but it's on the roof. And see the logs standing straight up and down, those are vertical. They hold up the heavy roof with vertical support. Now, he's a good provider for his family, good hunter. Knows how to run this barn, run heavy equipment, run for governor a time or two, pretty versatile fellow. And that's quite a construction project. Right next door, he's loaned a little piece of his land to some Alaskan Motorhomers. There's an Alaskan Class C with a paddle wheel on the back. I know someone 8 years of age. 55% men, 45% women. The girls don't get until about the 1st of June because they could get nipped with a frost, but now we're all right. And this beautiful home, of course, with the wood siding, makes you think about how lucky we have it today with all of our conveniences. Utterly no. But we'll talk about the animals here for a minute or two, then you'll get a chance to see them again. Amazing animals. These folks are members of the deer family. The little girl has her summer coat. The shorter chocolate brown hair is designed for summer. She was born this spring. She'll grow her winter coat for the first time when it gets cold. But the adults are shedding theirs out. They don't need it, certainly this time of year. And her mom, of course, lost her antlers, as she will do. The fellows, and their job is to provide security for the camp. There'll be these little square houses will be totally around the camp, keeping the bears away and the seagulls and the ravens and other things. And they eat part of the salmon in the summer and the rest of it in the winter. Some of it is preserved and some is fed right away. And it's smoked in the smokehouse. It can hang outdoors for a bit. When it's thoroughly dehydrated and preserved, it's stored up in the little cache, the building on stilts. In Athabasca, Indian. She is from Fort Yukon, about 100 miles north of here. Our good friend and a national treasure, Dixie Alexander. Hi, Dixie. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm real pleased to be able to share just a little bit about fish camp life with you. This camp here is very similar to the camp I grew up on the Yukon River. My family still fishes at the same spot today. Our aunts and lots of cousins that always visit us in fish camp. So we have a lot more canvas waltzes like the two over here. Very comfortable to stay in those all summer. We fix them up really nice. Sometimes if it got chilly at night, we just build a fire in the wall tents. But it's really exciting for the whole family to be able to spend all summer outside, especially after being inside most of the winter. And our smokehouse is much like this little one, but larger. Other than that, our camp on the Yukon River, very similar to this camp on the Tanana today.
Well, I know we've talked about this a lot. Fish camp was interesting, not only from the work involved, but also the learning that took place. Is that where you learned to sew, was it fish camp?
Oh, I think this was an excellent time for the whole family to learn many different kinds of skills. But me and my sisters, once all the chores were done around camp and the salmon was put up in the smokehouse, we would learn how to tan moose hide, caribou hide. We also learned how to do beadwork, porcupine quill work, and lots of skin sewing for winter clothing. And all these skills we would learn from my mother and also my grandmother. But this was a good time for my brothers too. They learned how to do these skills from my father. That was the main purpose we went to fish camp, because in the winter months my father went trapping, and he always checked his trap line with a dog team. He usually kept about 22 dogs plus puppies, and each one of his dogs would eat 1 dehydrated salmon a day. So you could imagine how much salmon we had to harvest for the whole team for the whole winter's use, and that's not even including the salmon we put up for ourselves. I remember many days my father would move around the fish field until he picked a good spot next to the cut bank where the salmon would run pretty strong. Some days we would even have to turn off the wheel. We could catch up to 200 to 300 salmon a day. When we're catching that much salmon, everybody in camp stays busy.
Well, now we're going to take a look at one volunteer here from the freezer, and this is last year's, what is that, a chum salmon today?
This year is a chum salmon, but we also have a nickname for these guys. We call them the dog salmon. The only reason we call the chums the dog salmon is because they run twice in one season. Therefore, we can catch a lot more of the chum salmon, more so than the kings and the silvers. So it makes sense for us to use these for the dogs. I've seen them get up to 16 pounds. This one here is probably 10 at the most.
Definitely looks like double figures. Dixie is going to make parts out of the hole here, show you how this is done. And she'll start with a long filleting knife, go right down the tail, either side toward the gills. The head, of course, removed. It can be split and dried, fed in the winter, or go in the stew pot with the salmon stew that the dogs would eat all summer, along with the softer innards and fins and whatnot. The fillets and backbones were the primary items that were dried, smoked, and carried on the winter trail. The trapper would just melt snow, bring water to a boil, soften that up, and the dogs really went for it. Now Dixie will score the fillets. That means cut on the horizontal about 1 inch apart, but not break the skin, because then the whole thing can hang over the drying racks. But keep your cameras handy. Here comes a good picture when she's done. She'll hold this up and you'll be able to see those vents where the smoke and the fresh air can get up in there and do all the preserving without any chemical or refrigeration or any artificial means. There you have it. Just that quickly, a well-dressed chum salmon, a la Dixie Alexander. Thank you, ma'am. You've done this before. Now, Dixie, on a wet day, do you go indoors or what today?
Well, normally when we're catching a good amount of salmon, we use this air drying rack over here. Air dry the salmon for about 5 to 10 minutes until it gets a nice tacky texture, then rotate it into the smokehouse, rotate it all around the smokehouse until it's thoroughly dehydrated. Once your salmon is dehydrated, it doesn't weigh that much at all. This is really important when my dad goes on a long trap line trip. The weight of his fat is important.
Well, now you look like you've got a good fire going back there. What sort of wood do you recommend for smoking the salmon?
Now, when we make salmon for ourselves, we're really picky about how we fix the salmon. We'll wash it really good first and then put it in a salty brine. Then we would smoke it with a really good sweet wood. And up here we use alder wood. Makes for a good tasting salmon. But when we're making salmon for the dogs, we don't do any of that and we just smoke it with cottonwood or spruce. We're not too picky.
Yeah, just hungry, not picky. I think the picky dogs are on the boat here this morning, so we appreciate that. We'll keep our eyes peeled for that alderwood. Dixie, thank you very, very much for being here. Dixie's going to clean the table up. She'll jump in her boat. We'll watch her buzz by us here in a minute or two. And she will greet you at her summer home in Chena Village. We're very excited to have Dixie as a member of our summer family. About 5 years ago, I think it was, we had some folks on the boat from the Smithsonian. They saw the quality of her work and almost on the spot commissioned her to create that chief's coat I mentioned earlier. It's a ceremonial Athabascan chief's coat made out of moose hide, decorated with the beadwork. You're going to see an example of that this morning. And that proudly hangs on permanent display in the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History. So the next time you're in Washington, you visit that facility, you will have met the lady that made that coat. There you go. Good job. And she'll set the emergency brake. And before she talks to us, how's this for management training? She's going to give everybody a pat on the head. See, we all run farther and longer and better if we all got a pat on the head. Occasionally, even after one lap, so I like her style. Then she'll work with these leaders. There you go. Better, and we'll turn things over to our good friend Jesse Royer at Trailbreaker Kennels.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Chena Village. My teammates and I were excited that you could be here with us today because this gives us a wonderful opportunity to share with you a little bit about how we live and train and work together. So I'm going to start off with introducing my teammates here. First off, these are my leaders. This is Abigail and Asics. Now they have a pretty important job because, well, we have no reins or lines or anything to guide the dogs with. So it's all done with verbal commands. So if I want to go right, I say G. If I want to go left, I say haw. So back here is the swing position. This is Baleen. He helps leaders keep the team strung out as we're going down the trail. He's also capable of leading, so if I want to give one of these guys a break, well, I can just switch him around. Now back here are my team dogs. This is Sakani and Salatna. Now, if I wanted to add more power to my team or more dogs to my team, well, I would do that by adding more team dogs. I would lengthen my gang line out here to accommodate the extra dogs. So say if I had a 20-dog team, I'd have to put A6 and Abigail about 100 feet out in front of my sled. So you can see how important it is for those leaders to always be listening to my verbal commands. Now back here are my wheel dogs. This is Kita and Babish. Often they're the stronger dogs in the team. They're the first to feel the weight of the sled while we're going up a hill. But they also have to be pretty agile to help pull the sled around trees and corners and things like that. Which brings us back to my job, which is not only to guide the dogs as we're going down the trail, but also to keep the sled upright. Now I do that by shifting my weight from side to side. Sometimes I get off and help the dogs by running or pedaling or kicking with my feet. As you can see, some of my teammates here, they're getting pretty excited to get going. They're telling me this is my cue to quit talking and let's get running. So I'm going to go ahead and take off. Before I do, welcome again to Chena Village.
Okay, Jesse, thank you, ma'am. Off comes the emergency brake. And the leaders are going to wait for that word. There we go. Off and running. We'll go the haw direction, left-hand direction once more. Got to jump off, adjust the sled.
We're here at the reindeer exhibition, along with the people who are on the boat. Little evergreen house. I'm sure we're going to hear all about it. Walk up and take a nice picture of this reindeer. Oh, there's a little baby one. There's a little baby one.
Oh, no, she's down. Get rid of the bugs. Must drive you crazy. Oh, look at this.
Amazing. Beautiful. Reindeer or caribou. These are reindeer though. Because they're domesticated.
Next fall, I'll be a junior at the University of Southern California, where I'm attending on a Naval ROTC scholarship. So hopefully in the next couple of years I'll be a Marine Corps aviator, but we'll see what happens. And right now we are in the Tanana Valley, which is the heart. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. The Tanana Valley is the heart of Athabascan Indians. And today, hopefully, my friend Ryan and I will hopefully show you how the Athabascans skillfully survived this environment for over 10,000 years, and just the past century had to adapt to village life and Western culture. And on our tour today, we do have 4 short stops, so you do have to please try and stay with us because we do have a lot to share with you. And then also there's 3 other groups rotating around with us. But then at the end of the tour, we'll give you about 15 minutes to roam around on your own. And right now I'll turn it over to Ryan, and he'll tell you a little bit about himself and also the animals behind him.
Hello everybody. I'd also like to welcome you to the Tina Indian Village. My name is Ryan Ngaya, and I'm going to be one of your guides today. Today you're going to be learning all about the Athabascan Indian people who are native here to the interior. I'm actually not Athabascan, but I'm half Yupik Eskimo. My father is a full-blooded Yupik Eskimo from the village of Tanuna, which is in the southwest part of Alaska, right on the coast of the Bering Sea. My mother is also a native, semi-nomadic Athabascans before any contact with the outside world. These people were constantly on the move in search for wild animals. The caribou and moose were the primary animals that these people hunted. These animals provided the Athabascans with the food, clothing, and shelter they needed to survive in this harsh environment.
Okay, we are now at the summer home of Beaver artist Dixie Alexander, so would everyone please join me in saying hello to Dixie?
Hello,
Does
Dixie.
she look familiar to you guys?
Yes.
Okay, good. We just saw her across the river at Fish Camp. I do want to tell you a little bit about her. She's originally from the village of Fort Yukon, and she's Athabascan Indian. And Fort Yukon is the largest Athabascan community here in Alaska, and it's located about 100 miles above the Arctic Circle. And I think the population ranges from 700 to 800. And she's very well known across the state as well as the nation for her talents in beadwork and also tanning and sewing the moose hide. And I do want to show you some very beautiful examples of her work, but before I do, I'll turn it over to Ryan, and he'll explain to you how our ancestors traditionally tanned the moose hide.
Friend is the caribou, skin side out and hair side out. In the middle is the grizzly bear, and next to me is the moose. Before Athabascans had contact with Western civilization, they were big game hunters. These animals provided them with everything, nearly everything they needed to survive. The meat supplied an abundant source of food, tools, weapons, and needles were fashioned out of the bones, and the hides were used as clothing, shelters, and lashing. After the Athabascan men had killed the animal, it was the woman's job to tan the hide. They would first scrape off bits of fat and flesh, using a fleshing bone like this moose shin bone. They would then singe off the hair using hot rocks, and the remaining stubble would be shaven off with this split and sharpened caribou shin bone. This would leave them with a piece of material like this rawhide. Rawhide was very useful, especially when cut into strips. This is called babiche. Babiche was used as lashings to web snowshoes and as just all-purpose rope. While this material was very useful, it was still too stiff to use as clothing. The next step in the process was to soak the rawhide in a moose brain and water solution. This milky fluid had acidic enzymes in it that would break down the tough fibers of the rawhide. It would then be scraped with a tool like this clavas. It is much like the Eskimo ulu, except this has a serrated edge. It took days and days of soaking, scraping, and wrenching out the material to make it nice and soft like this. The next process to preserve the hide was to smoke it. You can always tell a true native tan hide by the rich smoky smell and by the brown color. That I've shown you how they smoked it. We'll show you how they made them.
Dress, and this is a chief's coat. There's both ceremonial garments and they are museum quality. You might notice that both of them are made from tanned moose hide. And Dixie tanned these moose hides using the traditional methods that Ryan just explained to you, and she's actually one of the few people today who still do this. And also you might notice floral designs. These beadwork designs are an Athabascan trademark, and women tended to sew flowers that were found in their area. So here's the forget-me-not and also the bluebell, and you can probably tell what area a woman is from just by looking at these designs. And over here on the chief's coat, the flowers are actually supposed to symbolize animal tracks. And this is because women believe that if they sewed animal tracks onto their husband's garment, that it would bring him good luck while they're hunting. So here we have the lynx, the wolf, and the rabbit, and the white in between are ptarmigan dancing in the snow. And both of these garments are trimmed with beaver fur and dentalium shells. And the buttons on this maiden's dress are made from the cross sections of a caribou antler. And the buttons on the chief's coat are made from cross-sections of the moose antler. Now Dixie made a garment very similar to this chief's coat, which found its home on permanent display at the Smithsonian. And at this time, I think we have time for a few questions for Dixie.
Would harvest the dentalium shell. We also use bone beads and silverberry seeds. Nowadays, we just order our beads from catalogs. This next garment we're going to share with you is an Athabascan winter parka. This is a traditional parka, although I've added the zipper just so the tour guides could get it on and off very quickly in the summertime. And I put a cloth lining in this piece. Traditional parka wouldn't have that zipper. It'd be used as a pullover parka, and a normal lining would be fur. The main body is made from muskrat, trimmed at the bottom with calfskin and river otter. Wolverine tassels used on the design to show her husband is a good trapper, and he did catch a wolverine. Now get your cameras ready, because I know you're going to want to take a picture of this home. This is the sunshine ruff. You can see why we call this the sunshine ruff, because it resembles the sun. The outside of the ruff is made from timber wool. The inside of it is made from wolverine. Wolverine's used in most of the parka ruffs here in Alaska because of the natural oil in its fur that keeps the frost away from your face. The designs of these parkas are passed down from one generation to the next. And if you were to travel to another village, most likely the women in that village, you could actually tell what family you're from, what village you're from, just from the style and technique of your parka, especially the back of your parka.
One more time.
And also, one more thing. It was really important that the Athabascan husband get to know his wife's parka design. Because this day is really dark up here in the wintertime.
Come on. Abigail.
Looks like just about everybody's on here, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Again, my name is Jessie, and I work at Trailbreaker Kennel. I also have a pretty good-sized kennel of sled dogs of my own. Now, often when people come here, well, they have a lot of questions. Some of the more common ones are, well, just what kind of sled dogs are these? These dogs don't look much like sled dogs. They're awfully small. I expected to see a much bigger dog. So just what breed is this? Now, most people, when they think of the sled dog, we're thinking of the Siberians and the Malamutes. They're a lot larger dogs, especially the Malamutes. Now, Siberians are used as sled dogs. Malamutes not quite so much. or maybe a weightlifter to a marathon runner. These dogs are much more akin to the marathon runner than anything else. Now, these dogs, in fact, that is what they were bred for. They were bred for their endurance, their ability to travel long distances. They were used to haul mail, food, supplies, things like that, from village to village. It really is more about running than it is about pulling large amounts of weight. So we don't have the really big muscle dogs that everyone expects to see, because we're not pulling really large, heavy loads. It is more about running. Now, all the dogs in this pen, well, every single one of them is an Alaskan Husky. But the Alaskan Husky, well, it's not a registered or purebred dog. Therefore, we have a variety of different looking dogs because, well, frankly, we just don't care what these dogs look like when we breed them. We don't care if they have blue eyes or brown eyes or curly tails or floppy ears. Color makes absolutely no difference. What we're looking for is things like speed, endurance, strength, intelligence, instincts, curiosity, compatibility, and things like that. We're more concerned about what they can do, not how they look. He's enjoying this.
Me too.
Everybody likes their butt scratched. I forgot where I was at now here. Lost my confirmation here. Well, the Eskimos, they had some of the very first dog teams about 10,000 years ago. Even the other natives here in Alaska have also had dog teams for a very long time. Now, being in Alaska, they've had to learn to adapt to their environment. It can get down to 60 below at times in the winter, even up to 100 above in the summertime. So the dogs had to learn to deal with both heat and cold. And they do that by having two different layers of hair coats. What we see on the outside is a long, coarse guard hair that's used to protect the dogs from wind and abrasion. But underneath of that guard hair is a really soft underdowny coat that's made up of tens of thousands of microscopic hairs. The dogs will grow in each fall before winter, shed out every spring before summer. And you can see I have a little bit of a sample of it here. See how it's very thick and quite dense? And in fact, it is so warm that often now the power dynamic yellow harness still sticks out the back. So she could be probably leading our team through that winter storm wearing this bright red dog jacket. Thank you, Abby. I think she's got a career as a model.
Look at that.
These dogs often travel hundreds of miles in one winter time, even up to 3,000 or 4,000 in one winter. So maybe I'll put on one for you to show you how it works. I'll think I'll get Saucony here. Come on, Saucony. Bring him in the house. Good girl, good girl. All I have to do is just slip this booty right over her foot. There's a Velcro tab. It goes around her foot and fastens. And she's all ready for the races. She's wearing her bright red Nike. Now the dogs, they rely on us quite a bit for their care, nutrition, and guidance. So we train them, but we rely on them quite a bit also for their instincts and their abilities to travel in the wintertime. For instance, just this winter, I was in a race on the lower Kenai Peninsula. Here in the middle of this race, a pretty severe winter storm came along. Very high winds, heavy snow, full visibility. It was in the middle of the night, and at times, I had to help my leaders break trail through 3 and 4 foot drifts. But at other times, because of all the new snow and the high wind and the low visibility, I had no idea where the trail was. I couldn't tell where it was at. So I had to rely on my leader's sense of instinct, smell, and feel to help keep us on the trail. We had to work together as a team to get to the finish line. It's the trust and be trusted relationship we have with these dogs. We rely on them just as much as they rely on us. Now I can see I am out of time. You guys are waiting over here to take
150 years ago, when the prospectors began to arrive into the interior on stern-wheeler steamboats, much like the one we're riding in today. And these prospectors were followed by many missionaries, traders, and trappers. And all of these people and their ways brought many changes to the Athabascan lifestyle. The merchants would build their trading posts all along the riverways, and these posts were stocked with food, utensils, clothing, tools, and guns. And the Athabascans then began trading their furs, like you see around Bryan, for tools such as the saw and the axe. And this is very important because these tools allowed the Athabascans to begin building cabins like the one you see behind me.
This is the Discovery